What if a true crime YouTuber turned out to be the criminal themselves? What if the community they built around talking about crimes was truly a front made only to filter out their prey just to victimize them in private? Today, we'll be talking about that predator who's hid amongst the poachers who would hunt him, Calvin Mandrake. You see, Calvin, over the course of about a year, has amassed a following of over 47,000 subscribers at the time of recording, falling into the true crime niche and creating documentaries on various horrific events or tragedies such as what Adam Lanza has done. These videos seem fairly well made at a glance, so it's not crazy to see how popular he's gotten, but even before his predatory behavior came to light, people began to get a bad feeling about him. Some viewers were put off by his lack of seriousness during coverage of extremely heavy and tragic events, tragedies that in some cases affected countless amounts of people's lives. Others claim to have gotten a sense that his fixations on some of these truly evil people aren't all out of just morbid curiosity or distaste, but something worse, though how related those feelings viewers had in the following, I don't know. It's truly disturbing how similar Calvin turned out being to the very people he would create his content on. So getting right into it, Calvin would have a Discord server to go along with his YouTube channel, one presumably to help with community building, and supposedly provide a place to talk about maybe some of the topics covered within his videos, or people talk about true crime in general on there. However, this server turned out to actually be his own personal hunting grounds for him to seek out vulnerable young girls under the age of 18. He would seemingly sink his fangs into and drag any girl that jumped into the server into his personal DMs, where you would find him asking for all sorts of inappropriate and suggestive photos, or texting them in a suggestive manner, for example sending foot pictures or much worse. And everything that he would ask for, or everything that he would say, is like really chronically online, degenerate gooner stuff. But the worst of it is that he wouldn't care at all what the ages of these girls were at first. If anything, asking for these girls' ages would be an afterthought, maybe, and when any of these girls turned out to be actually under the age of 18, all he would ask of them is to please tell everyone else in the server, everyone else who asks, that they're over the age of 18, or update their bio to say that they're over the age of 18 on Discord. For example, we have him here. After already asking for explicit photos or feet pictures that he's going to do explicit things with, he asks, wait, how old are you? Okay, wait, I should have asked that before the feet pics. To which this person replies 17. And he says, okay, but I blanked off to them. And in reply to their censored reply, Calvin, just as cool as a cucumber, says, okay, just tell everyone you're 18. Really putting on full display for us this guy's moral compass. He feels absolutely no remorse or regret for what he did. He's not horrified that he forgot to ask the age of this person before he started talking inappropriately with them, acting like this is just some small mistake that could be easily forgotten about and overlooked. And even when these little mistakes would eventually happen, to cover his own back, not only would he ask people to lie about their age, but he would give them the 18 plus role in his server, so he could point to that and say, hey everyone, look, this girl is definitely over the age of 18, right ladies? But when you're an adult, you have the responsibility to ensure the person you're going to engage with in this manner is an adult to the absolute best of your ability. And in the situation where someone under 18 is found in this supposed 18 plus server where he was hunting, he should have done the right thing and removed them. There's a power dynamic there that was exploited to the highest degree, and it's absolutely so disgusting to see. Even as a hypothetical, say these girls are 18 or older, there's still a power dynamic to be exploited with that content creator slash fan relationship he was taking advantage of. From these girls he'd be DMing, picking out of his hunting ground. Some of these viewers, they may idolize him, see him as someone important with this admiration, and it creates an unhealthy dynamic. The Leaping Lemur could attest to creator-viewer relationships not working out. But when you throw the idea back into the mix of a handful of these girls being under 18, it multiplies over and over this power dynamic, only aiding him in his grooming and manipulative behavior. And manipulate he would, because when he'd get into an argument with any of these people in this Discord server, or there'd be a falling out, he would do nothing but play the victim. And some of this is just so incredibly embarrassing. This is not how a grown man should be acting over Discord, especially not talking to people under the age of 18 like this. One thing in particular that he'd whine about or complain about while playing the victim is about how absolutely devastated he'd be if he lost his YouTube channel, stating that it's the only thing he has in his life, trying his hardest to pull on the heartstrings of these vulnerable girls in attempts to keep them attached to him. And it's kind of crazy to me that he let on like the most important thing to him in this whole entire world is his YouTube channel. He was worked so hard to build it up. He really has no idea what he'd do without it, when really with all this effort he was putting into getting all these inappropriate photos, or building his harem, as he'd like to call it, it seems like the YouTube channel is more or less a front just so he could filter people into those hunting grounds we mentioned earlier. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't end at just him asking for these really weird photos from people under the age of 18, or the manipulation, or begging these girls to lie about their age, because this guy, much like our buddy Lemur that we mentioned earlier, would cross state borders to get with one of his now ex-girlfriends. Now, I'm not sure if this girl was actually one of the viewers that we mentioned before, so maybe that doubled up uneven power dynamic isn't here, but she was still 16 years old while he was 20. And now in his home state of Maryland, I don't think that would actually be illegal because the age of consent there is 16, though 16 and 20 is incredibly weird, and I don't think that's even okay under the circumstances. But the state he crossed into to get to business, let's say, this would not be legal, and Calvin would admit it himself in the following text messages, saying, "Man, do you think I'll get in trouble for blank with a 16-year-old at 20? Then I'm worried if anyone ever finds out about my ex, or if she finds my channel. Isn't 16 legal in your state?" this friend says. And well, technically it was in yours. Afterwards asking unless you went to her state, to which Calvin replies, "I'm worried sometimes, I did." And Calvin knows what this makes him. He admitted it himself in this text message where he goes, "Dude, sometimes I get scared because I know I'll get exposed one day. Like, I'm a PDF file, dude. I'm not even joking." Now, it's incredibly awful that someone like this has such a following on YouTube, opening up doors to access to presumably countless young women, especially considering teenage girls are such a huge demographic for the true crime genre. To have a predator openly prowling the space like this is sick. People like Calvin need to be held accountable for their actions on and off the internet. Now, Calvin would disagree with that, at least about the part about him needing to be held accountable in all this, because just what you'd expect out of the man he is, when faced with being called out on this disgusting behavior, he made a response, of course, in a Google Doc of all things. And some quotes that really just sum up the whole response are, "When it comes to the fabricated screenshots, I don't know what to say. I can't debunk them. I can't do anything to convince you otherwise," which really sucks. It's really just a he said, she said. But I hope you think twice about believing someone who outright admitted they wanted to ruin me over false allegations. This whole thing is just so stupid. I don't see why anyone would want to do something like this completely out of nowhere. It's really fucking creepy how obsessive and creepy she's become over this. I will continue to make videos, but I obviously will never have another Discord server. But yeah, it's just a whole bunch of pointing fingers, crying about doctored photos, claiming the leaker of a ton of these screenshots has some sort of vendetta against him, that every single screenshot is a joke taken out of context or didn't really happen. It really isn't worth the read in the first place, because every screenshot provided by him doesn't directly disprove anything about these allegations. We just get to see the same cry of innocence. Many of the other predators I've talked about on this channel claim that everything's a lie and fake, and they're not that kind of person at all, with of course no real supporting evidence for their own claims. Now, of course, I think false accusations can really ruin people's lives, but it's really not looking good for this Mandrake Calvin character with all the evidence stacked against him. And the way he was going about talking to anyone in that YouTube Discord server he made for himself was just wildly inappropriate. If he continued on the way he was, there were bound to be some sort of allegations that came out of this anyways. Real disgusting stuff, but anyways, I'd like to give a huge thank you to the viewer who sent this to me over email. I really appreciate when you guys fill me in on this sort of thing, so thank you. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to like up and hype up the video, and maybe even subscribe if you'd like to see more just like it. And don't forget, shortly after we hit 10K, you guys will be getting this wonderful game that's going to play in a moment, released on Steam. Later, Grubbas.